from the 90s models Arnold no fat era to the Victoria's Secret models Marvel action characters and no carbs of the early 2000s, onto bodyweight hit, CrossFit veganism, into the booty building weightlifting era of the 2010s. And now we're in the new era of Pilates, running, carnivore, and Chris Bumstead. And in the 2020s, another new era emerged in online fitness, anti-aging. Less about looks and more about lifespan. And one of the medical professionals leading this, Dr. Peter Attia. Peter Attia takes it, I'm gonna take it. Founder of Early Medical, host of The Drive, medical degree from Stanford University School of Medicine, and author of the #1 New York Times bestseller, Outlive, The Science of Art and Longevity, which I binged in the first week of its release. And over the last year, I've lived according to all the principles in this book. And today I'm gonna bring you through all the major protocols so you can maybe implement into your life and show the results for an average person trying to do this. What is the specific goal of the book Outlive? Now we know lifespan, which is the number of years you live. But Peter Attia's biggest premise is not just improving lifespan, but health span, which is how long you're healthy enough to do the things that matter to you. And then longevity is a combination of the two, which is maximizing both lifespan and health span. Starting with January 2024, step 1 of Peter Attia's protocols is enter the cetenarian decathlon. Pick 10 things you want to be able to do when you're 100, which would mean you have a good quality of life. For me, I picked hike over 10 kilometers, be able to swim, dance, play with kids and dogs, have sex, go shopping / lift my bags while shopping, travel, play sports, run, and lift myself up. And this is important because when you're designing your workout, all the different protocols, there's only so much you can do. So let's focus on the things that matter the most to you, and that's what mattered the most to me, which leads into step number 2 of Peter Attia's protocols is his 4 pillars. A quote from him specifically: "If the benefits of exercise for longevity were a pill, it would be the most effective drug of all time." We will get through into the specifics of it, but it's just crazy. If you saw how much just moving your body increased how long you live, it's insane. So what are his 4 pillars? 1, let's all say it together, zone 2 cardio. 2 VO2 max, 3 weight training, and 4 stability / mobility. So I decided, what am I lacking the most right now? What can I focus on? And something that aligns with my goal. One day I want to be able to dance. So let's work on our stability and mobility. I started my yoga flow. My mission for the year was to be able to do a yoga flow / stability, mobility, like 10-minute exercise every single day, and then take up dancing. So I did ballet in Stockholm, and I started doing mobility exercises every single day. Flash forward, some things happened. So pillar number 1 exercise, stability. What does he recommend? 1, focus on your breathing, the cylinder that stabilizes your spine. 2, the feet, these are that ground you to the earth. And 3, your hands, because they interface with the world and transmit force. Hence the importance of grip strength. One of his key indicators of just how long you live is your grip strength. So I started implementing my posture challenge. I started doing posture exercises to really work on my feet, how my body stands, and doing those yoga flows, which helped me personally work on my hand strength and also breathing. Then I also went and got blood work, which we're going to talk about a lot later on in this video. Okay, I'm currently about a month into my Peter Attia challenge. I actually got my blood work done way at the beginning, but it took a little while to get the results. And we're going to kind of read off some things that I'm going to keep track of. First, my reproductive hormones are actually all great, which is good. I've had cystic ovaries and all this. My reproductive health has been a journey, but it seems to be really good. So that was nice. But there's a couple things. My iron is very low. Second, some of my white blood cells are concerning. And third, I had one cholesterol marker that was just a little high in the bad cholesterol. The biggest thing with Peter Attia is also just your genetic factors, and 2 things that run in my family genetics wise. 1 is unfortunately Alzheimer's, which got my grandpa. And my other grandpa died very young of heart disease. Now he was not a healthy individual, let's just say that. Man loved 2 things in life: alcohol and red meat. And by red meat, I mean like burgers and smoking. So you know what? What could you expect? Cardiovascular is interesting because I feel I have such good cardiovascular health. Like, I've done cardio my whole life. My VO2 max is really good. I'm hoping by doing all these things, it kind of puts my cholesterol in a bit of a better place. And then I'm going to get my white blood cells tested again in a month, because that could have just been I was recently sick, or is there something else underlying? So after getting the blood work for my nutrition, I knew I needed to add more iron-rich foods to my diet and start to monitor my cholesterol. On to February and really zoning in on my second pillar of his protocols, zone 2 cardio and getting my iron up. It is February 2024 and I feel really balanced. I feel younger. It's weird. Since I've been really getting into more like I hate to even use the word anti-aging, but I think we know what we're talking about then. There needs to be a better word for it, but just like health span, improving my health span. I like that. Like, I feel I'm getting younger. I always had this impression that 25, it was downhill. Every year you get older. And don't get me wrong, like over the age of like 18, you can't rely on youth. You used to be able to do whatever and it didn't matter because you were growing. But then if you do nothing, it will go downhill. But if you're doing these protocols, I feel you can extend that like youthfulness for so long. And so the next area of my decathlon that I'm going to be entering, things I want to do. I want to be able to hike, I want to be able to run, and I want to be able to travel. So that means zone 2 cardio. Now, you probably heard that a bunch, but what is zone 2 cardio? It is aerobic exercise. It's 60 to 70% of your max heart rate, or at a pace that is easy, you're able to hold a conversation, pass the talk test. And he recommends about 4 times a week for 45 minutes. I mainly got this from walks around Vancouver. Luckily, Vancouver is very hilly, so there's a lot of hills, which makes your leisurely walk a little bit more into the zone 2. And this was less of a habit to add, but more of a habit to maintain. Now, you might just be asking yourself, okay, Keltie, like we get it. We're supposed to walk 10,000 steps, little zone 2, like specifically why? And let's just talk a little science lesson about why zone 2 is so important. Quoted from Peter Attia, technically what zone 2 is the highest level of work you can do measured in watts while keeping lactate below 2 millimoles. Pretty much it's your max pure aerobic capacity. When you go above that, you're exceeding your mitochondrial capacity, which means your ATP must be generated outside of the mitochondria, which is the one thing we all learned about in high school. Mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. This is specifically why zone 2 is so important. It shows us how healthy our mitochondrial function is. The higher your zone 2 is, the more mitochondrial function you have, aka how healthy you are at a cellular level. So by improving your zone 2, you're improving your ATP capacity in your mitochondria, aka your cells are getting healthier. Like, that's crazy. Or maybe I'm just a nerd. Oh, it's all been so happy. But now I gotta just burst your bubble and we gotta talk about step number 3 in Peter Attia's protocols. It's acknowledging the 4 horsemen of death. Number 1, cardiovascular disease, so heart health, which is the number 1 killer. Number 2, cancer. 3, neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. And 4, what he calls foundational disease. It's things like insulin resistant, fatty liver disease, the type 2 diabetes. In layman's term, it's stuff with your metabolism. That's all right, but just layman terms. So during February and January, I really started to really reflect on these. These are the things most likely to kill me. Of course, we want to lay down foundations to be healthier, but what can I also start to do to eliminate the chance of avoiding these? Fast forward, let's go into March and to the 3rd pillar of exercise, which once again, his biggest longevity drug, and that is VO2 max. And why? This links to my centenarian decathlon, because one protocol in that was I want to be able to run after future kids and dogs if I'm blessed to have them, because those buggers are fast. The speed mother efforts, boop. So I gotta be able to sprint. Otherwise they're gone. Bye. Bye, Rufus. Just kidding, that's morbid. That was morbid. I can make a lot of morbid jokes in this video. We're talking about death, but how to avoid death, VO2 max. Okay, I just gotta tell you some stats, because you want something that's gonna make you live a long time. This VO2 max one is crazy. VO2 max in relation to all-cause mortality, we see a very clear trend. Simply bringing your VO2 max from low, the bottom 25th percentile, to below average 25th to 50th percentile is associated with a 50% reduction in all-cause mortality. Move aside, Ozempic. That's crazy. Oh, but that's just a start. Here, this one, when you go from low to above average, so from the 50th to the 75th percentile, the reduction is closer to 70%. What's the Bradley Cooper limitless thing? Now move aside. It's just sprint a couple times a week and you're literally running away from death. It's crazy. So now that I've sold you the medicine, not a doctor, once again, this is all my own experience and reading from his book. This is not medical advice. But what I did is, number 1, I did my Miley Cyrus video. So you guys know I was learning to sing while running. That was very challenging. If you want to talk about Zone 5, that's a fun way to get your Zone 5 in. But more specifically, what I would do is if I did a weight training workout, I would just make sure at the end of the workout to sprint a couple times. And honestly, I'm not good at getting my Zone 5. It takes a lot for me to get into those high zone areas. I gotta really max out sprint. If there's one skill I'm good at, it's sprinting. We all have summer jumpers. I am fast, but I'm lazy, so I don't like to go fast. So I sign up for berries and spin classes because the bumping music, the people around me judging, I will go 15 miles per hour on that treadmill when there's people looking. When they're not, solid 9. I'm just being honest. I'm aware of my character flaws. Am I a little show-offy there? Maybe. Or it's just the energy. I blame basketball. I blame being around sports. I just need to be around people. I'm lazy. So for me, I did more of a specific VO2 max training and his exact workout he does in like September, October. We'll talk about that. But just to start off, getting back into the habit, because in the wintertime, I don't like to go as fast because of ice. I just signed up for a Barry's once class, spin class once. And you know, I really aim to be like the 10 to 20 minutes a week total of just going balls to the wall. Now, what about overtraining? Because that's one thing people are like, Keltie, you're doing a lot. It's less likely, the research I've looked into, it's less of overtraining and it's under recovering. So starting with this, I'm building more into my routine. I really have to prioritize my recovery, which is something he is very component of, and that's sleep. And here is what Peter Attia recommends for having an optimal sleep environment. First, darkness. You should not be able to see your hands in front of your face. Hint, getting room darkening shades. 2, a cold room, temperature 60 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit. Avoid alcohol after 6 p.m. Wind down at the end of the day and create a bedtime routine, and avoid screen time, especially social media scrolling a few hours before bed. So I really just tried for all of this month is to just dial in my right routine. Focus, have a priority, and the rest of my life revolve around it, except when I went to Vegas. There was indeed no sleep in Vegas. But like dancing was part of the decathlon, so I had to go do it. So really just optimal wellness is a girl's trip to Vegas. Quoted Keltie, not Peter Attia. So YouTuber versus medical professional. And right before we drop into April, I had a very important phone call, the consultation to do my first step in towards Medicine 3.0, Peter Attia's business baby. This is exciting. I'm just about to hop on the pre-appointment call with my doctor. Hello? Perfect. I've done similar like urine tests and stuff like that. 2 days out, no seafood, no supplements. Day before, I have to start fasting 12 hours before. I get in, I do a diagnostics, then I'm gonna go do blood work, then I go do a DEXA scan, then I can eat a little, and then have to fast 4 hours before I go MRI. Oh, I didn't realize this was gonna be all day of just poking and prodding. Eee. Oh, I just got a flashback to March 2024, Keltie. She's got a little message for you. Cheers. AG did not sponsor this, so they get no free promotion, but I genuinely do drink it every day, so. But sorry, that was March 2024 Keltie. This is December 2024 Keltie, who has an ad read, and this is indeed sponsored. Because yes, during this challenge, I have drank AG1 every single day, and a big component of why I drink it is because Peter Attia drinks it. He recommends it, and a big reason I like it is he's been quoted in a lot of his podcasts talking about like he doesn't take sponsorships for supplements in his podcast. He has no sponsorships in his podcast because he just thinks as a medical professional, it's just murky. Just think of like, we're always murky of hearing all these like studies sponsored by, you know what I mean? Like, I think he's really mindful of that and how it looks, but he's still open to taking AG1. And so I have to take sponsorships as a YouTuber, but I take sponsorships only things that I genuinely use every single day and I'm obsessed with. I have a very small supplement routine because AG1 covers so many different things. It has a wide variety of nutrients. It's a prebiotic, probiotic. A green drink might not be for everyone, but personally, I love the idea of having that foundation, just having a wide variety of nutrients every single day. And for me, it simplified my routine. And yes, it is a premium product, but the fact it's so many products in one, I think of it as being my multivitamin, my prebiotic, my probiotic, my adaptogens. Like, I just think of it as I actually have 6 supplements, and the price of that is why I think it's so worth the money. Of course, I'm not just going to talk about it and not give you guys a deal. If you go to my link, you'll get a 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2, vitamin D, St. Peter Attia recommends, and 5 free travel packs with your first purchase of AG1. Thank you, AG1, for sponsoring this video. So April was when I had my consultation for my appointment with Medicine 3.0 at Connected Health here in Vancouver. As someone who personally doesn't have a family doctor, I haven't had one in like 5 years because I've moved. There's not very many available in Canada. I was really excited to just get everything tested. And the consult was fun just because I could specifically geek out about longevity and anti-aging protocols with someone who knows way more than me. In this month, nutrition, I kept up with the idea of Nutrition 3.0, which I'm going to say the specifics in a couple minutes in this video, but I knew something I was lacking was iron, so making sure to get some kind of red meat, dark leafy greens a couple times a week. Keep up with the workout routine I'd have so far and my recovery. Work on music and dancing because part of my decathlon is dancing and singing, so I did my Miley Cyrus and Meg Thee Stallion workouts. Stability, I was doing the fitness influencers workouts where it was very Pilates focused, so that was nailing my stability at the time, but also I was doing weight training, which is the 4th pillar of fitness, which I was doing about 3 times a week until the end. Zone 2 do. I ran a 10 kilometer, went to Jasper to do it with my friends. But I will mention running is really interesting enough. One thing Peter Attia is kind of against is like marathon running. I think we just have to be aware running's in right now, but I'm not going to fearmonger running a marathon, but just realize it is a sacrifice. It is not like the healthiest thing in the world to do. It's a great achievement. Not everything in your life has to be about peak health, but I think a lot of people are like, oh, running's good, zone 2, VO2 max, but like a marathon run is a bit of an extreme. It is really hard to do as an average person and not overtrain because we have to work and pay bills and we're not professional marathon runners. So for me, I will eventually push myself to run a marathon, but while I'm just kind of working on my own health and recovery and all that, that's one reason like I feel I just haven't done it, is I just know I wouldn't have the capacity to fully recover for it. So it would actually potentially be negative for me in my life, but I know I can easily run a 10 kilometer race and fully recover from it. So that's why I just right now I'm really just cranking out those 10K races. On to May, and step number 4, the one I've been hinting at, Medicine 3.0. And this is his biggest longevity recommendation, aside from like the thing that improves your life. I know medicine, but this is big thing. This whole business is the idea of Medicine 3.0. So what is Medicine 3.0? First, it's just early detection. It's the idea that prevention is way better than a treatment. It's individualizing your health and lifestyle plan and actions and routinely assessing your risk, knowing your numbers. Think health span and quality of life. So I went in to get my testing done, which meant my DEXA, MRI, blood work, hormone panel, cognitive response times. I got everything done. Now, I didn't get my results for a time, but one thing I got a result from, which was really encouraging, was my DEXA. Back in 2023, I got some DEXA scans back, and my bone density in my back specifically wasn't optimal. There's the green, the yellow, and the red, and it was kind of the top of the yellow. And I'm like, I eat well, I strength train, I should have better bone density than I do. And so I really made it a mission for the last 6 months to work on strength training specifically for my back, and super exciting. Just got the DEXA scan. I haven't done one for 6 months. I've gained, my weight stayed the same, but I've gained 4 pounds of muscle and my bone density is going up. I've really been concentrating on back exercises the last year, and it's just so exciting to see results from it. Like, I can't see my back, but I haven't had tension headaches. I haven't had lower back pain, and 4 pounds of muscle gain. Crazy. And it was so encouraging that I was like, you don't see it, specifically when like you're not training to like try and be as jacked as possible. You're like, cool, I'm lifting and I'm getting a little stronger, but like, is this doing anything for longevity? And there was actual numbers to be like, your bone density is significantly improving, which is very important to my decathlon, because one of them is being able to lift a shopping bag and lift myself up off the ground, because I want to be able to go shopping and grocery shopping and carry my own bags. And we're going to talk more about his strength training recommendations later on in this video, because I had some hiccups. But one thing I did get a lot of people asking, like, Keltie, what did you do for back exercises to improve your bone density? It is so lame, guys. I just did rows. I did the deadlift. I just did barbell rows, dumbbell rows, sometimes some cable, lat pull downs, or pulls. I've just pulled heavy things. It's not that deep. Honestly, if I'm being 100% honest, twice a week I did a bunch of dumbbell rows. Sometimes I threw in the others. That was it. Strength training is sometimes that simple. Just compound movements, lift every week and try to lift a little bit heavier. Row, row, row your boat gently. That is all I did. It's that simple sometimes. On to June. The protocols on my cetenarian decathlon that I really worked on was dancing, K-pop challenge. And I really honestly felt I was hitting all 4 pillars, nailing it at my recovery. I was really prioritizing sleep when I was jet lagged. And so we have to talk about the other thing that isn't actually as important as you'd think it would, is nutrition. But what he recommends is nutrition 3.0. So what are the key components to nutrition according to Peter Attia? 1, what you eat, so your dietary composition. 2, when you eat, the timing. And 3, how much you eat, the calories. Or how Peter Attia refers to these 3, dietary restriction, time restriction, or caloric restriction. And you have to ask yourself, are you undernourished or overnourished? Are you under-muscled or adequately muscled? Are you metabolically healthy or not? Most people have poor metabolic health, undernourished and undermuscled. Then if that's the case, they want to reduce their energy intake, but also making sure to maintain muscle. And this is why nutrition 3.0 is, it's assessing what you are and getting testing done to see what you're really lacking in. But for me, it really made me self-assess. During this time, I knew I'd be traveling a lot. I was going to France, I was in Sweden. I wouldn't have like my typical routine diet because I wasn't in the office like I kind of am. But I just kind of asked myself, like, what's most important to me specifically? And just to have it like simplified while I'm traveling to work. Now, I'm sorry, this is going to sound braggy, but like, I don't have a tough time maintaining my weight. Like, my weight is always within kind of 5 pounds. It's at a natural set point that works for me. If anything, it's hard for me to gain muscle and it's hard for me to gain weight. And so it is really hard for me to get in enough muscle. So I was saying I have to be mindful of, I don't really have to worry about being over or undernourished, but I have to be careful of being under muscled. Also was the other thing in my blood work. Iron. So for me, I really had to be mindful of when I was traveling to make sure to get protein in, which can help with muscle maintenance, and then of course trying to get in red meat. So let's specifically define Medicine 3.0. It's based on data and feedback instead of labels, trends, and dogmatic ideology. Attia stresses that in general, diet and nutrition are poorly understood by science and definitely muddled by misinformation. He kind of says there's so much conflicting research. We just don't have any concrete research specifically right now. This diet makes you live longer. There's some indication, there's blue zones, there's all these different things, but there's not like a clear black and white. But the one thing that does is really your energy balance. So he even says like all the fasting diets, according to Peter Attia, all the research about that and longevity is it's really being in a calorie deficit, is there's no way to like differentiate between them. So what you can do though is you can ask yourself what works best for you. Is it calorie counting? Is it a time restricting diet? Is it really what allows you to eat in a way that you're at an energy balance that works for you? It made me self-reflect that I did a CGM monitor, so this continued glucose. I did a challenge if you ever want to go see that. I'm so nervous. Okay, that was not bad at all. And it kind of just showed me that I could throw whatever at my body and my metabolism was like, we're good. Come on at it. Like, I am metabolically blessed, but for me, I'm a high stress individual. I love science, I love all the data, and I'm really guilty of like seeing, eat this way, this is gonna be healthy, this, and like, I'm like, okay, this week I'm gonna try this and this. And I have to realize the stress of thinking about that is probably for me specifically more harmful versus like just trusting myself, listening to my hunger cues, and then just every once in a while getting blood work and monitoring like, yeah, you need a little bit more red meat. That seems to be what works for me. It's all about personalization. Now with that, let's talk supplementation. I'm rapid fire going to say it because this would be another thing he would recommend is there's a few things that most people out there would need, but there's very few things that every single person wants. So it's really about experimenting. And if I give one recommendation with supplements is take a scientific approach. If you bought a new supplement, buy one and only start one at a time. It's tough. You want to have the whole new stack, but start one, do it for 4 to 8 weeks and see if you notice a benefit. Then take it away after those 8 weeks and notice you feel worse not having it there. And that's what I have done. Like for example, colostrum, I did it. I didn't really notice a difference. I took it away. I didn't notice a difference. And that's why I have it. Occasionally I'll throw it in there. But for me, I didn't notice any difference taking it. So that's why I was like, there's other things that make me feel better. Now his recommendation, what he specifically has been quoted taking is AG1, magnesium, specifically Slomag, and omega-3, vitamin D, and protein powder. He also takes some things like cumin extract, a baby aspirin, metafolate, and metal B12, and vitamin B6. What was I taking during this time? AG1, omega-3, vitamin D, protein powder. The brands I use, I love Momentous, I love AG1 just because of the NSF certifications of them. And yeah, nothing crazy there. On to July. And I reflected back on the protocols. What do I need to be doing that I want to be doing when I'm 100? One thing was sports. So July is the perfect time for sports. You want to be out, you want to be active. I don't want to be stuck in a gym. So we did golf, we did tennis, I went biking. And actually, here's a little fun side quest of one of the best things for longevity and health is racket sports. One study published in the British Journal of Sports Medicine in 2016 tracked more than 80,000 adults over 9 years to compare the benefits of various sports. Researchers found those who regularly played racket sports reduced their risk of death by 47% compared to those who were inactive. It's fun, it's social, it involves a lot of brain capacity, and you're getting in those zone 2 and occasionally some of the VO2 max when you got to sprint. So it's so many health benefits in one. And so really in July, back to those pillars, I got my zone 2 with walks, bikes, I ran some 10Ks, very slow 10Ks. These were not like speed ones. I was like, oh, this is more leisurely. Like I signed up for them just accountability. So I actually ran on the weekend, not to actually get a PR. I was doing some stability, I was doing some sprints occasionally, and I won't lie, this is where weights fell off. That's why I haven't talked about pillar 4 because I kind of forgot that one existed. August is once again reflecting back on my decathlon. What things do I need to be doing? I did my Olympic running. I tested the luxury gyms. I did various boot camp to get in that zone 2. Did lots of running. I even DJ'd a festival, which, I want to be able to dance and sing and all that. So, that aligned. But up to this point, the year has really been about improving health span, which is great. But if we improve our health span, but we don't actually live longer, it's time to once again talk the more specifics of the 4 horsemen of death. And number 1, the number 1 killer on earth is heart disease. Someone has a heart attack every 40 seconds in the US. And the best thing Peter Attia recommends is 1, to know genetics. Are you more likely to get it? And 2, are you having lifestyle factors that implement it? And another is don't smoke. Don't smoke. Like, I think of it as like lung cancer, but also as a big health risk for your heart. And ideally, you can go beyond the standard lipid profile of total cholesterol, which I did when I got my testing done at Connected Health. And also, you want to get a handle on glucose metabolism. In the dream world, you get a look inside your arteries and get a coronary artery calcium score or a heart scan. Another thing you can do is measure blood pressure routinely and consider wearing a heart rate variability. Of course, I've tried Whoop, I use my Oura Ring and Apple Watch to track this. And also ask yourself, what's your VO2 max or maximal aerobic fitness level? Are you getting enough exercise, sleeping, and eating? And for me, I assess those not smoking. And yeah, I had some eye-opening things about a few of those. But let's go on to the second horseman, cancer. Now, cancer is closely linked to metabolic dysfunction, and the best thing you do is get healthy to avoid it. This chronic inflammation creates an environment that induces cells to become cancerous. Otherwise, aggressively early screening is our best defense. Late detection is a death sentence. So according to Peter Attia, live a healthy life is one of the best ways to avoid it. And in an ideal situation in this medicine 3.0, we would have a lot more early detection for people. Number 3, neurodegenerative, Alzheimer's disease being the most common. And the reality is medicine 2.0, which we're in right now, really can't do anything for us. But what we know is what's good for the heart is good for the brain. Exercise and sleep are our best weapons. Exercise maintains glucose homeostasis and healthy vasculature. The reality is where we're in medicine right now, there's not much we can do, but the one thing that really links to this is sleep. And number 4, type 2 diabetes and metabolic dysfunction. Basically an issue with your body's fuel processing, and it's on a spectrum. Heart disease, cancer, and dementia are all built on metabolic disease. Each one is amplified by metabolic dysfunction. Exercise, diet, and sleep are our weapons here. And let's move on to September when I got my results and what to do about these 4. It's finally time to get my results, which I'm excited for, but I'm also nervous because up till now, I'm healthy in my mind. But am I actually nervous? But as long as the bad results are fixable. Getting my results back, and there was 3 really big things. 1, my cholesterol, which we talked about earlier, yes, wasn't great. 2, my omega-3s, which was interesting, were very, very low. And all my stress management things were, it seems to be genetically, I'm a high-strung individual, and my body and a lot of things are indicating I'm under a lot of stress, which no one finds shocking. Now, it was interesting. 1, I increased my dark meat consumption a lot in the 6 months. It didn't affect my cholesterol. So I knew that wasn't it. I knew that probably wasn't what was causing this higher cholesterol. It wasn't the saturated fat from red meat. One thing my doctor recommended was actually the low omega-3s could be one of the things affecting my cholesterol level. So that was interesting. And looking back, my white blood cells for getting the blood work were back to normal. So I probably was just sick. And that's all that was. And getting all these results back really helped me focus on what of these horsemen do I have to work on. 1, Alzheimer's my grandpa had, so it's always in the back of my head, it could be there. Now, we did all the metabolic testing. He even said, he's like, metabolically, you are golden. Like, you are fast metabolism, burn through everything. Like, you don't have to worry about metabolic dysfunction. And so I was like, okay, I can almost turn that off. So in terms of genetics, that one is what leads to Alzheimer's. For me personally, it could be maybe sleep. So that. Now, another thing, let's go back to the heart health, is another thing with that is what's also tied to the specific cholesterol molecule that was off for me is stress. High stress, high blood pressure. There's a lot of things that all came down to stress. I think we oversimplify how important the little things are when we're younger. And I'm like, right there, I see the pathway of if I'm not working on my stress, how that can lead to Alzheimer's, heart issues in my future, because how it's affecting me just smallly right now, built up over time, is what leads to those things potentially. But also I can't hyperfixate on them, because if I hyperfixate on them, I stress too much, and then that defeats the whole point. I can't hyperfixate about my nutrition because I'd be stressed. And it was almost overwhelming. I got the results and it was almost like I have so much to change, but nothing to change, and don't stress about it and just change a little bit. And you kind of want fast results. I think that was why I was also really stressed, because I'm I'll change these things and in 2 weeks I'll see. I'm I don't know if this will do anything, if it doesn't happen for 50 years, but in 50 years I'll look back still kicking it. That's great. It's So got my results back. September, new year, new me. You know, we love the September, leading into the winter arc, as we started calling it. And I reflected back on my workouts. Now, getting kind of back on my stability. I was doing my zone 2. Running, I actually felt really good with my VO2 max. Like I felt like it was something I was focusing on, I was really doing, and I decided to up the ante. He has a protocol, which is this 4x4. You go 4 minutes all out. So think, if you're like, I can't sprint for 4 minutes. No, you're not supposed to sprint for 4 minutes. You're supposed to go as fast as you can for 4 minutes. Kind of after 4 minutes at that max speed, you can't go any farther. It won't be perfect. You have to build and found your baseline over time and figure that out. But then you rest for 4 minutes, repeat that 4 times. Now, I had some people ask me about it because I posted a short. They're like, Keltie, I don't know what my speed is. That's fine. Pick a speed. You'll either be running too fast, you can't do 4 minutes, or you're running too slow and you could have gone more. And next time, increase or decrease and keep trying that. It might take you a few weeks to find your baseline, and that's okay. During the time of finding your baseline, you're still pushing yourself, and that work isn't going unnoticed. Like, it doesn't have to be the perfect 4x4 for it to be beneficial. Eventually you'll get there and that's optimal, but still the work while you're figuring it out is still worth it. On to October, and equipped with all this medicine 3.0, all these results. And I won't lie, I was overwhelmed. I thought I'd come into this and just be empowered to make these changes and want to live forever. And I realized, as someone who wasn't able to be in like Peter Attia's program and then every month check in with the doctor who was like, oh, you doing this as just a layman person, be given all this, it was almost overwhelming. And so I almost did nothing at the first. I was just like, go back to my life. And I was during a very stressful time. If you saw me do nothing, I had a breakdown. And also I just was really reflecting. It was Thanksgiving. I was going back to my family. And I realized I was entering a new chapter of life. Like, my brother just got married and other things. Also, just seeing my family get older just hits me more and more every day. And I think in the last quarter this year, I really started to understand the importance of health span. It's one of those things I know I've said so many times, and Peter has said time and again, but something about it, like, it really sunk in of like, that meant more or less time with my family. And at the time I was also doing yoga. So I was back on my stability and mobility, barefoot running for zone 2. I was getting on more omega-3s, but then I hit my hardest part to deal with, is stress management. And I know it's important, but honestly, I didn't do anything about it until I had my breaking point. I had my breaking point after Halloween into November, and I had the first time in a long time where I could physically feel and see the stress. I saw the physical stress response of like, I couldn't eat, I lost my appetite, I couldn't stop crying. Like, it was like I physically got triggered, and just like a reminder of like, even though this was my lowest point, it was like, this shows how much emotional health and stress does affect you physically. Because I know it does, but like, I don't think we actually let it sink in. At least me, I'm like, I know, but like, it can't really affect that much as long as everything else. I was like, I physically was crumbling because of like the stress I had of just, I think everything was built up, and that was a trigger point that caused it. And it was like, I need to do something. So what did I do? Nothing. November, prioritizing sleep and stillness. Now, this one is hard to explain, but I realized I had to not do more. I had to do less. I think a lot of us in the self-improvement, health, fitness sphere are constantly thinking, what's another exercise, another supplement, another food we can take? What more do we need to do? Even like another sleep protocol. How do I optimize my sleep better? And what I actually had to do, which was so uncomfortable, is less. Do nothing. Keep the course. You have the just do them. Do nothing more. Allow myself to get bored. I redid my night routine so it was simplified. I didn't add more to it. I was like, every night, unwind, dark room, get bored, less social media, read a magazine, do boring things so you want to fall asleep, and start prioritizing things. After getting the testing and acknowledging my own family history and having a better understanding, I have to acknowledge that I am naturally a very high-strung person, and there is heart attack in my family, and the connection between lack of sleep and Alzheimer's. I have to realize it is not being soft prioritizing this. I am naturally always going to be someone who does more, be healthier, do more. And the reality is I need to do less. I need more time. I need more space. And it's weird, but it's hard. And I specifically have to leave time for my body to be bored, because when it does and it's bored, it calms down, it relaxes, and it recovers. I think just acknowledging like I was in a real big state of burnout, but what can we do to overcome that? And I think that doing nothing challenge was a big thing for me. What he specifically recommends is reduce the time doing things that cause extreme stimulation, because the eventual come down from the extreme stimulation is what can cause those like low moods. So just think gambling, social media, those quick hit dopamines, reduce those stimulating things. 2, get natural dopamine, which you can get from cold exposure and exercise. So for me, it was just really being mindful of those things that keep me overstimulated. Go, and do a bit more natural dopamine things. This is exciting. One of Peter Attia's biggest indicators of longevity is actually VO2 max. But for me over the last year, I've just really tried to like every week incorporate some VO2 maxes, either like 2 to 3 times a week at the end of a cardio session, doing a bunch of sprints, or doing like one dedicated HIIT training session where it's like, I'm really bringing my heart rate up and then I'm trying to bring it back down to full rest and then bringing it back up and down. And I just noticed last night, this is in November, that the Apple Watch now tracks your VO2 max. It's not going to be as accurate as a machine, but at least it just shows a trend, and mine has improved every single month. And it's actually now considered high for someone my gender and age. Like 38 is the high level and mine's in the 40s. So that's just really exciting, seeing that upwards trend. And I don't feel like I've done anything crazy. It's not like I'm doing these insane things. It's like 20 minutes a week or like sporadically doing it throughout and just being consistent with it over a year. I've seen results. Oh, that's so satisfying. That's so exciting. Oh, on to December, where I have to finish this challenge off strong. I gotta do it all. I gotta do everything combined into one. But I felt ready. After a month of doing nothing, I felt antsy. I wanted to do more. And I think that's kind of the point. That bored feeling is a good thing because that's how you know you're recovered. When you sit on the couch and you start to feel bored and antsy after you had a long workout, that's good. That just meant your body got to a place where it relaxed. It wasn't like an antsy, a guilt feeling. It was just like, okay, let's get going out of this rut. And that was what I needed, which means back to strength training. I fell off the strength training route for the last few months. It was like I couldn't take on one more thing. And so I was doing Pilates, I was doing some stability things. And if you asked me, Keltie, what's your workout routine? I would mention I do weights 3 times a week. It's part of the routine, but it didn't mean I did it. I did it 1 time a week. I just didn't show up a lot for it. So what did I do? And what were the 4th pillar of Peter Attia's recommendations? Strength training. And what he recommends is you want to strength train. You want to lift heavy. You want to squat, deadlift, hinge, push and pull, do grips, farmer's training, hang, and he sometimes rucks, and do that 2 to 3 times a week. Hence I did my weighted vest challenge. Now, specifically, this is so important for women. And that's something I haven't really prioritized in the last few years. Now, why you want to improve your muscle mass is because it helps with osteoporosis and just increasing that strength as we get older. And one reason you want to increase strength and importance of muscle mass on your actual bodies is it's an engine for your metabolism, strength, and fitness. My workouts were there and I had an aha moment of how far I've come. In 2023, it was all about breaking my bad habits. And a couple days ago, nearing the end of December 2024, I realized I had not picked my skin in months. I have the odd really big pimple and I pop it, but I haven't had a picking spree in months, guys, months. And I didn't think I'd ever be capable of that. It dawned on me the other day, it'd been so long since I got home, was overworked, looked in the mirror and just started picking. It's been months. And it was like, this challenge wasn't extreme. There was nothing extreme I was doing. It wasn't for the views. It wasn't do this and this. And it was the first time I was like, wow, this is really, really what I need. And hopefully what other people need. And like, I was giving my body so much. I was dealing with stress. I was giving it nutrients. I was giving it recovery. I was giving it workouts. I was pushing when I need to be pushed and allowing relaxing. And because of that, I didn't turn to my most negative coping mechanisms. The year before I was really taking away the bad. And I realized at the end of the year, I realized I couldn't just take away the bad. I had to add the good. And I didn't even purposely do this challenge for that, but it ironically ended up being that, which was actually in some ways harder because it's like I naturally feel like I'm a default, like screwed up person. So it just makes sense. Like, yeah, I got a lot of bad stuff to get rid of and like not deserving of doing the good things. And it was really hard. It was a lot of not people pleasing, asking for help, doing the good things for my body, putting up boundaries. And I did start to see those results, like even in just my skin and how I feel. What, in summary, are his protocols? Step 1 is enter the Centennial Decathlon and define the 10 things you want to do when you're 100. Step 2, educate yourself on the 4 horsemen of death. Step 3, early detection and medicine 3.0. So ideally you want to look for a prevention versus a treatment. Get everything possible monitored so you can get an individualized health and lifestyle plan that work best for you and what you need to work on. Step 4, the best longevity drug, exercise. Have a workout routine that covers the 4 pillars. 1, Zone 2, do 150 to 180 minutes a week. VO2 max, you can do as 4x4 or just aim for about 20 minutes total in your zone 5. That can obviously be broken up. Weight training, lift heavy, do things like squats, deadlifts, hinges, pushes, and pull movements, grip movements, and hang 2 to 3 times a week. Stability and mobility, do stability a few times per week before or after training or on a recovery day. Step number 5, work on nutrition. Nutrition 3.0. Ask yourself if you're over or undernourished, if you're adequately or under muscled. Eat in a way that works best for you, whether that be controlling your calories from time, counting, or just whatever works for you to make sure you are adequately nourished and adequately muscled. Step number 6, mental. Because a quote from Peter Attia specifically is, striving for physical health and longevity, health span, is meaningless if we ignore emotional health. Because it's true. He talked about in his book how he used to have an anger management issue and he was always angry. And it made him realize, like, what's the point of living longer if I'm always angry? And I was like, this is going to come out really wrong. But what's the point of living longer if I'm not happy? True. So like, yeah, you want to live longer so you can enjoy more of life. And if you're not enjoying life, what's the point? And it actually does physically affect us, like myself, which is, let's get into my results. My biggest results, the answer is always loving your body. I know if I can find just ways to keep moving, sometimes slow, sometimes fast, sometimes heavy, I will have such a better quality of life. And I won't lie, I've taken a hit in some ways by stepping back from like insane challenges on this channel, but physically, mentally, I feel so much better. It's tough not to go for the flashy new workout diet. Like, they're so tempting. I constantly have to step back and like, stay the course. The simplicity is key, even though like that's not the big dopamine hit of the flashy new thing. And then I ask myself, if you feel like you should do more, do I actually? And I had to step back, and I felt kind of worried at first about showing my results because I'm very used to online, and even YouTube is like posting a crazy transformation. You know, you want that. I've gained 10 pounds of muscle in a year. I increased my bench by 2 times. I took 20 minutes off my half marathon time. I ran an Ironman. Like, you know, here's my abs now. Here's like these crazy transformations. And, you know, the one physical transformation I'd say is my skin in that sense, but that wasn't even really changed. It was less like me picking at it. And I don't have a crazy transformation, and I was a little disappointed with myself. And then I realized that's the point. That's the point. I feel good. I feel young. Every year I've implemented these routines. Like, I'm not saying I'm like aging in reverse. I'm not Brian Johnson, but I'm feeling better. And I think that's like, there's more of a lust for life, more I want to do, more I want to prioritize family. And like, I feel good. And I have to keep reminding myself to stay the course. When you do these kind of workouts, they're very simple. It is nothing flashy. It sounds basic. You've heard it time and time again. Work on stress management. Eat in according to your goals. Do some blood work. Get a little bit of monitoring. Adjust according to your own genetics. Like, it's stuff we've all heard before. Like, even when I read Outlive, I was like, oh yeah, I like this specifics of it. But it wasn't like, oh my God, I need to eat this blueberry from Africa. It was like, oh yeah, sleep more. And it always comes back to that. And we have to remind ourselves, if you're someone like me who's constantly like wanting to be productive, add more and more, but you're doing so much, you have to step back and like just stay the course. Push yourself a little bit sometimes, but when pushing yourself too much, take a step back and just constantly reassess and I think that's all we can do, because we can't see these crazy transformations. Like, every few months, step back, look at what you're doing, reassess, stay the course. Reassess, stay the course. And that's so much like of even like careers and passion. Like, oh, I want to do music, but it's not this dopamine hit of starting something new. So you think it's wrong. So you're like, oh, jump ship and go somewhere. Like, that's the point. You have to stay the course. Reevaluate when you're burnt out. You'll come back to it if you really enjoy it. And I realized time and time again with my job, with my fitness, there's times you're burnt out, but when you take a break from it and you want to go back to it, that's a sign you were just burnt out. It's not the wrong way. And also in terms of health and wellness, it's those consistently boring things time and time again. And if you just reflect back, they're right. And I think the only indication I really have for myself, because it's hard, I don't know what I'll be in 10, 20, 30 years by doing these protocols. Only time will tell. But I can look at my mom, who's actually ironically done a lot of these things. She's always done Pilates, weights. She's never done extreme running. She was always like a 10-kilometer, half-kilometer runner. She always walks, and she's stayed mentally active. Like, she's built our lake cabin by her hands with my stepdad, and she's so youthful. And I've never felt like my mom was mentally old. And I'm like, that's what I have to look forward to if I just stay the course. On the flip side, if you're someone listening to this right now and you're like, Keltie, I don't have those habits. Like, oh, this sounds nice. I want to give a tip. I only got here because I actually started this challenge in some ways 2 years ago. I really started working out in more this way, I'd say 3 years ago, and separating myself from extreme challenges. And 3 years ago, I did the Huberman protocols. The year after that, I did like kind of a hybrid of Huberman, Brian Johnson, Peter Attia. And this year I did Peter Attia. And there's a lot of similarities, but there's little tweaks I made over the last year. But it was by every month tweaking, adding one little habit, tweaking a habit, realigning back with it. And after 3 years, it's just a part of a lifestyle I can kind of autopilot do. It did not go by flipping my life upside down in 30 days. It was in 30 days only doing one thing. And that's how I got here in terms of habit building. And 3 years might seem like a lot of time, but it goes by faster than you think. And the results now I have for it is I feel good. I have energy. I want to be social. I want to do my job, and I want to work out in the 4 pillars. And I make time to allow myself to get bored in my day, which is actually productive, which is ironic that I've said it's productive because that's how I know I'm mentally and physically recovered. And to simplify it all, there is 3 components of health span for Peter Attia recommends, and just make sure you have a little bit in each of the buckets that align with the 10 things you want to do when you're 100. And bucket number 1, cognitive. Bucket number 2, physical. Bucket number 3, mental. Yep, that's health span. It comes down to that. And for me, moving forward, I will just make sure every month I have something in each of those buckets that align with my decathlon. And every few months/year is testing and making sure I'm on the path. And if I'm not perfectly on the path that leads me there, I realign, and just that rinse and repeat. And I'm going to leave you and /me with one thing moving into 2025 that I will be doing. I recently listened to a podcast with Peter Attia, and he recommended his 5 books. And one book he recommended was from one of my favorite authors, Ryan Holiday, who I've read all of his books, except one, Stillness is Key. I avoided that one. I've avoided that one for like 5 years. I'm like, that's rather not be still. That sounds revolting. Which, yeah, that I know what you're saying, like, Keltie, that means you need to read that one. I know. If you avoid things like that, it's because you know you need it. And so I ordered Stillness is Key, and I'll be reading that, and I'll be working on my stress management as per usual. And that will be me moving forward. I love to hear down in the comments what your main focus will be for the new year, or maybe what really worked for you last year that you're carrying on into this year. If you just need a little spot, you're like, I just need a little place to talk about what I'm going to be doing or what worked really well for me in 2024. I'd love to hear that. If you have a little win from 2024, comment down below. It's a very positive comment section. I'm very blessed, and I'd love to hear you guys hype each other up. And most importantly, the thing I did multiple times this year was pet a dog. Have a great day. Go pet a dog. Love you guys. Bye.